I loved Kate. 36 years ago, she came to our office to apply to be a secretary. And it didn't take but moments to know this was a truly amazing human being. For one thing, she was the world's fastest typist. And if you think I'm kidding, what I mean by that is if you've ever tried to watch a hummingbird's wings, that's what it was like to watch her fingers. If there had been Olympics for typing, she would have held Phelps's gold way back in the 70s. Not only that, but she was publishing and editing a poetry magazine at the time. And so not only did she type everything, remember there's no computers, there's no word processing back then. She was editing it, revising it, making everything better. We fancied ourselves to be a collective at the time. Everybody was equal, staff, lawyers, all together. So, unfortunately, she soon realized that she was actually more equal than the rest of us. Very little common sense and absolutely no business sense whatever. And so she approached us, and I remember that day when she said, you know, Fred, should I go to law school? Every selfish bone in my body said, discourage her. We fought through the conflict. She didn't even have an undergraduate at that point. She finished her undergraduate, she went to law school, and some few years later came back as a partner. My partner for 26 years. She did incredible cases. I mean, if you've seen the Post, you know about the farm labor organizers, which I'll mention again in a minute. She was fighting about, you know, when you walk in the streets of Columbus and you see those curb cuts, that's Kate, who did some of the first cases to make sure disabled people had access to our sidewalks. She did what we called the lady fireman case in front of Judge Canary, because that's what he called them. But she and Sandy together really got women on the Columbus Fire Department. And I could go on. I mean, there was a case, one of the first community cases that I know of, where Kate and I represented the most neglected part of Arlington. We call it the hooved sideway case, because their sideways are so bad you couldn't even walk on them. But I'm not here to talk about our cases. I want to talk about Kate. I want to talk about four things about Kate. About her sense of justice, about her joy with life, about her affection, and about her humor. I mean, I've seen the Post. Everybody here knows Kate had a magnetic laugh. I mean, and she was an easy person to get to. Even I could make it. And I relished it. I looked every opportunity just to hear and see Kate laughing was such a pleasure. But she also had this, in fact, one person said this, and I think it's true. She brought a laugh to every conversation. There was hardly a time when it didn't happen. But she also had her own strange brand of humor, good humor. And I brought with me today over here, this was Kate's bulletin board, which was behind her desk for 20-some years, which she left at the office and never came back to pick up a few years ago, and we pulled it out. And there, for example, she has the only pin that says, I've ever seen, I'm a lawyer and you are not. It's right there on the board if you don't believe me. And right next to it is another pin that kind of balances, saying lawyers eat their young. I have seen that before. There's also a card, John Marshall, where are you? It's John Marshall. There's your business card there saying, John Marshall, attorney at law, and the most handsome lawyer. You can see it. I'm not sure whether it's John's handwriting or Kate's, but I'll let you be the judge of it.
I don't think it's Kate's.
So, and she even helped us when we took Little King's, Kathy King's, all of her real furniture out and put in doll furniture. So when she came home, she had the smallest bed in the world, which she almost fits in. But that, her humor, her sense of justice. Kate was a person, so many lawyers do good work. There are a lot of great lawyers out there. But Kate didn't just work as an advocate in a courtroom. She went out. If you read Martha McFerrin's write-up about Flock in the Post, you get the sense of it. Flock was a case where a young lawyer, Jack Curie, was beaten behind a jail in front of 40 people, had his head smashed into the pavement. These were dangerous. These were sheriff's deputies who did this. These were tomato pickers who were organizing. These were dangerous people. But Kate didn't just go and help as a lawyer. She spent a summer there, working and living, and became known as La Kate. She was that way about everything. When people were murdered in Greensboro, Kate was there to go down, no matter what the risk. When there were demonstrations here in Columbus, she was either organizing them on the front line or getting legal observers for it. She did the tenant union, ComFest. I'm so glad she got the ComFest Activist of the Year award this year. That was her sense of justice, her joy. Kate, I mean, she showed joy more than almost anybody else I know. I mean, Michael, I mean, she loved you, Michael. She so much pride in you. And just by circumstance, because Maggie Melinda found it, there was a love letter that Michael sent to her a number of years ago, which she had shown me years ago, and I'd forgotten about. Number one, I'd say it pays to have a poet as a lover. Having read that letter. But she just cherished it. And the joy in her face when she showed that to me. And the joy when she talked about Naima Nicole. And Nicole, there's a letter, it's hysterical, handwritten letter about making pudding to Michael and some other things on there. And Naima's picture, I mean, she loved you both so much. But she also had all these other joys that meant so much to her. Whether it was ordering Michael or me or whoever in New Orleans for the Jazz Festival to go down the street and get 24 Bloody Marys to bring back to start planning out the day of music. Whether, I didn't go that often, but a couple of times I went then to have oysters at the Acme Market, and just what she looked like when she was eating the oysters. It was beautiful. When she played basketball and would knock you out of the way with those hips to get an open shot, and if she made it, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see that smile on her face. She just was a joyous person. Her affection. I think everybody in this room knows this. Didn't she make you feel special? She made me feel special every time I saw her. She was that kind of person. Every person she represented was like that. I mean, they bonded with her. The people in Arlington handmade a gavel for her. The firefighters, the women who fought, maintained contact, and Flock. Again, just read Martha's description. It tells you about it. So she's affectionate. She was joyous. She had great humor. She had a sense of justice. My fondest memories and my moments with Kate were sitting in the living room at Michael and Kate's house. Usually there was some kind of sports on the TV, tennis, basketball, whatever. Not so much baseball. Football, and of course, Bo or Skink, cats, and we would partake of enjoyable entertainment and talk for hours. And I really, really, really wish I'd had more time more recently. But, even if you're lucky, you only have a few soulmates in life, whether you know them as sisters, brothers, lovers, or friends. Kate was one of my soulmates. And I'm so glad to have her in my life. And my head tells me that Kate has gone away. But everything in my being and every memory I have tells me that Kate is here to stay.
I'm sure that none of you will be surprised to learn that the farm workers of Northern Ohio loved and respected Kate. That love and respect is reflected in an honorific bestowed by a movement matriarch. Mariana Bermudez's 7 sons and 2 daughters didn't dare disobey their mother from South Texas who could still best her rowdy 16-year-old son, Wheelie, when he decided to come home late or climb the water tower or go out drinking with the flock volunteers. Mariana called the beautiful, imposing law school student from Columbus, La Kate. La Kate drove a 4-on-the-column white Ford like a truck driver from down in Old Mexico. She drank with the men, but she also learned how to make tortillas in Mariana's kitchen. No matter that instead of round, the tortillas looked, as Mariana said, like a mapa de Texas, which isn't round. La Kate made time to talk to the little kids and played pool in the evenings with Nati and Feliz and Rick and Renee. Mariana's house in Leipzig, Ohio was the real heart of Flock, with the coffee pot on at 4 a.m. and the living room full of Santos and family photos and portraits of John Kennedy and the Pope. It was where the board often met, listening carefully when Mariana's husband David offered his quiet wisdom. Out in the back of their house, you'd usually see an engine or a transmission suspended by a block and a tackle rigged up in an old tree. The guys would be out there working on the brakes and making sure that everyone's taillights worked so that no one got arrested on a night prayer vigil in that rural racist county. La Kate and I roomed together at Maria Solis's house across town. We stowed our sleeping bags behind the living room furniture during the day and camped out on the floor at night. All the volunteers got up before first light, and if you had any sense, you went over to Mariana's before the meeting at the public park. Then we'd go pick at the farm, still harvesting tomatoes for Campbell's and Libby's during the huelga. Caravans of 20 to 30 cars with black and red eagle flags flying would snake along the county roads until the heat of the day drove the strikebreakers back to their sad cinder block compounds. That's when we would go to a different park and eat peanut butter sandwiches, unless, of course, Mariana had hooked you up with a homemade lard tortilla filled with cuminos and beans. I'm pretty sure that the photo of La Kate that was in the Confest program was taken at one of those lunch stops, and I'm sure that it was taken by Martha Leonard, a professional photographer from Chicago. The white growers had never experienced anything like La Kate. She defended our constitutional rights to assemble, she typed like a thunderstorm, she intimidated all the caseworkers and forced bureaucrats to actually do their jobs. La Kate got people the benefits they'd wanted for years. She avenged Chicanos in a small gringo town. She got trumped up charges dropped, and she didn't take any shit from the sheriff, who was known for violence and bigotry. Later, when I moved to Columbus, I experienced Kate whipping through the alleys in that same Ford like she was a stunt driver. We babysat, pardon to Phyllis, we babysat Phyllis's perverted dog, Brunet, who stopped licking himself only long enough to escape into the alley and snack on unthinkable things. I saw Kate nurture 2 girls and a whole generation of women firefighters while falling madly in love with a visionary jazz poet who was amazingly her equal as an artist and an activist. Kate made sure that Little Kings was safely moved to DC with full-size furniture and bought my daughter Eva cute pinafores from the Yucatan. Kate and I met in Flock's narrow hallway above a bingo parlor amidst a crazy hubbub of Puerto Rican anarchists, Chicano tough guys, communist optimists, Catholic nuns, undocumented workers, university interns, idealistic pacifists, and pillars of the movement like Mariana Bermudez. La Kate. Coming from Mariana, it was a great honor, and I'll always remember my daring, funny, voluptuous, smart, and strong friend as La Kate.